Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Please forgive me. Oh, I put this on vibrate. Wait, that was the wrong thing. What did I just do? I don't know what I just did. What was vibrate? Oh, we like that. That's actually. Hold on, bear with me because it's good news. This is good news.
Yay, I could use some good news.
So, yeah, it's good news. So, how many of you know who Sebastian Gorka is?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You guys-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sebastian Gorka. Okay. So, do you guys have a Bible? Or do you need one?
We don't have a Bible.
Then, well, that's okay. This is a full service. So please pass this down. So Sebastian Gorka has taken to following my writings, and as we pass our charity box around, someone has to remember to take it. And so I'm out of sleep, so I'm a little tired time-wise. So yesterday morning, or the night before that, he posted on his Twitter about trying to raise money for B'nai Zion Hospital. And then yesterday we got $26,000. And then last night he posted on, or he didn't post, on his TV show, he had a little banner that said you can give by going to, and I just want to make sure that and we raised another $64,000 since yesterday. Which means that we're just through him. So it's kind of cool when you think about it.
That's the first thing he said on his show today. He started talking about you.
Really?
Yes. I sent it to Orlando.
What was he saying?
He just said there's a rabbi, Michael Barclay. He didn't say where. He just said that you had told him about this organization, and then he got that email from you saying thank you and that he'd done a mitzvah and so on. And his guest right after that was Dennis Prager, and he asked him, what exactly does a mitzvah mean? I mean, he knew it was a good thing, but he wasn't exactly sure.
I would have loved if he'd asked Dennis if he knows us. Knows our temple. Because Dennis has chosen to ignore a lot of things. So.
Yeah.
But yes, that's terrific. Okay, so that's all good news, because that means that we're saved. We've literally saved hundreds of lives in the immediate, and what will be thousands of lives over time, and that's pretty cool. And as a temple, we gave just for people within another 26,000, and then another person who's involved in the community that lives in Hong Kong gave them 50,000. So we are personally responsible for over $175,000, only to save lives. And by the way, with the exception of the guy from Hong Kong who's really wealthy, and I think one other person, I think all of these have been in increments of like $50 and $100 for the vast majority of the time. It's kind of neat. So that's a good thing. All right. Who else is tired? I'm having sugar. Okay. A couple things. It's going to be a week from Wednesday. We're going to do our class, right, Orlando? Yes. On Judaism and war. A week from Wednesday. So we can publicize it. No, it's not the first yet. 25th, I think. We have what? Yeah, well, he better get back. I've not heard anything from him yet, by the way. I need Jacques' phone number. Please text me Jacques' phone number. Okay, thank you. Okay. And then this Friday, we weren't going to have a service. We are having a service, but a different service. It's going to be, we'll light candles and say blessings. But the service is going to be a class, so to speak, on what's going on over there. Bless you. So that everyone is a little bit more aware and conscious of what's really happening, what we can do, what we shouldn't do. And it's an email about that, I think, tonight. And the history of it, and of the region, because most people really don't know what's going on and how we're being attacked and in what different ways, and what our response should be and why. How many of you think Palestine has a right to the land? Honestly, think that there should be a two-state, that Palestine has a right to the land. Okay.
Some land.
Okay. How many of you think Palestine's been there a long time?
Yeah, that's a long time.
So you're saying, so how many think Palestine is older than 70 years?
No.
Older than 100 years? Okay, you understand the vast majority of people think that it's ancient.
Right.
That's not. So that we're going to those kind of things. And so you all have the information to arm yourselves as people start to attack Israel even more and more, which they are doing.
What time Friday night?
Shabbat 7:30. We'll light candles.
You might like to know that Rob McCoy was educating people at church on Sunday.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. And you know where he probably got his information from.
Dennis? You?
Probably was reading stuff they sent me.
Good.
I love Rob. You know that. Okay, so let's talk about where we left off with the death of Sarah, right?
Mhm.
So Sarah dies, and we have these other people. So I made a little genealogy chart here. And Abraham has two sons. One is Ishmael, one is Isaac. From Ishmael, there is a great nation that springs, which are called the Arabs. Because Muhammad traces his lineage back up to Ishmael. Okay? And so ultimately, the Arab world comes via Ishmael. And Isaac is where we all come from. Okay? Isaac is the most underrated patriarch, possibly the most underrated character in the entire Bible. Isaac is so holy, he never leaves Israel. Okay, that sounds weird, but you have to have merit to be in Israel at all, let alone to be born there, let alone to die there, to live your whole life there. And he had great merit. He was the master of meditation. He was really this great master of meditation. We learned much from him. He marries Rebecca, and they have two sons, Esau and Yaakov. Now, we don't do a lot of talking about Isaac, and the reason is he doesn't have a lot of stories. Okay? He doesn't have a lot of doing stuff. Abraham does a lot of stuff. Jacob does a lot of stuff. Moses does a lot of stuff. Joseph does a lot of stuff. Isaac just stays in Israel. He's actually very, very powerful and does a lot of amazing things, but it's more hidden into the text. Okay? So Abraham and Isaac. Abraham finds God on the mountaintop when he's about to sacrifice Isaac. Isaac finds God in the field where he goes to meditate. Okay? Jacob is going to find God in buildings. He has two sons, Isaac does. He has Esau and Yaakov. Now, they're twins. And Yaakov means heel, as in the heel of your foot. And the reason it's called Yaakov is because he's holding Esau's heel when he's born, when he comes out. Okay? And Esau is the very ruddy one. He's big, he's strong, he could be a football star, not the brightest guy in the world, very much controlled by his animal instincts. Yaakov's the mama's boy. Okay? He's the mama's boy. He's very shrewd, he's very smart, he's more artistic, he's more clever. And their names say it as well. Esau comes from the root to make, to make something. Yaakov comes from the word heel, which if I called somebody a heel today, what does that mean? They're kind of a scoundrel, right? They circumvent what they're supposed to do to manipulate, right? And that's who Jacob is. And this interesting things start to happen with the two of them. So let's find our, I got to remember my glasses in. I have to do that. So let's go to Sarah dies, told us, which means generations is very much about Isaac and then Jacob. So let's come to, if someone could please turn to to chapter 26 in the book of Bereshit, verse 22, and read. Anyway, 26, 22.
He relocated from there. Is that where we are?
Oh, I'm sorry, 25, 22. I apologize.
Okay. He built an altar
No,
there.
25, chapter
Oh.
25, verse 22. Are there people online, Orlando? Did Ingrid make it, or?
The children agitated within her, and she said, "If so, why am I thus?" And she went to inquire of Hashem. And Hashem said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, two regimes from your insides shall be separated. The might shall pass from one regime to the other, and the elder shall serve the younger."
Okay, so let's evaluate this for a second. Okay, first of all, God, what does this tell us about God's knowledge? It's omniscient. God knows what's going to happen even while they're in the womb. And yet we have free will. This becomes one of the push me pull yous within Judaism. But it says very clearly, the older is going to serve the younger. Okay, please continue.
When her term to bear grew full, then behold, there were twins in her womb. The first one emerged red entirely with a hairy mantle, so they named him Esau. After that, his brother emerged with his hand grasping on the heel of Esau, so he called his name Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them.
Okay, so either got two sons, this ruddy one, Edom or Esau, this other one that's grabbing the heel, Jacob. Please continue. The lads grew up.
The lads grew up, and Esau became one who knows hunting, a man of the field. But Jacob was a wholesome man, abiding in tents. Isaac loved Esau, for game was in his mouth, but Rebekah loved Jacob.
Okay.
Jacob simmered a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. Esau said to Jacob, "Pour into me now some of the very red stuff, for I am exhausted." He therefore called his name Edom. Jacob said, "Sell as this day your birthright to me." And Esau said, "Look, I am going to die, so of what use is it to me is a birthright?" Jacob said, "Swear to me as this day." He swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, got up and left. Thus Esau spurned the birthright.
Okay, how many of you heard this story before, in one form or another? Okay, so let's just recap what goes on. Esau comes in, he's been hunting, he's hungry, he wants food. Jacob has been cooking something. What has he been cooking? Lentil stew, correct? And he's been cooking that. He says, "Nope, you can't do it. I'm not going to give you any unless you sell me your birthright for some stew." And so Esau does, and so Jacob, in theory, is now the main. He will get the main amount of Isaac's inheritance. Everyone follow that? And how many? Yes.
I always thought about how much chutzpah he must have had to come in to his big brother, he's been to him, big husband brother, and he's kind of a small, probably a small guy. And even do it after that.
Okay, so there must be a reason. That's a great point, Alan. There must be a reason. So let's back up a little bit. Why is we often we hear Jacob stole the birthright? How many of you heard that?
Yes.
Okay, it's the Arabs' land, It was promised to Abraham and his descendants. It would have gone to Esau, which also becomes Arabs, but Jacob stole his birthright. Ever heard that one? That one's not used as much anymore, but that was a large one for a long time. So let's look at what's going on here. Why would Jacob be making a lentil stew?
For food.
That you don't get to answer, you know. Carolyn, spank him, will you please? Okay. When do we eat lentil stew? There's a specific time. At a Shiva minyan. Because lentils are round. So we eat bean stew. Or we eat eggs because they're round foods. So the Midrash teaches that this was for their grandfather Jacob's meal of consolation. And Esau, what does he care about? Jacob's dead. I mean, Abraham's dead, so what does he care? So that makes sense. So Esau is coming involved, and Esau is saying, well, I don't care about that. I'm hungry. He doesn't care about the past because it's Abraham's meal of consolation. He doesn't care about the future because it's Jacob's, he doesn't care about his birthright of the future. Is that who you want as the leader of a people?
Why
So
doesn't he care though?
because he's just an animal. We talk about him that he's much more in his animal aspect of his soul of who he is, as opposed to Jacob, who stays in the tents meditating, doesn't go hunting. So it doesn't mean Jacob doesn't have his own issues, because he does, and his own problems. But what's really interesting is, he didn't steal anything. Esau could not control his appetite. On a certain level, we're seeing that today, aren't we? Because Hamas is the descendant of Esau, with no control of the appetite, and no thinking of the future or the past. Because who can use babies as shields, and who can do what they've done? So Jacob has sold the birthright at that point. Okay? Is it his? Yes. We bought it, fair and square, right? I mean, he had the chutzpah to ask, right? And the guy had the foolishness to make the deal. So what ends up happening after that is that we have, there's Isaac is going to ultimately die. So let's go to chapter 27. So remember, he's blind. He can't see. And who knows, without even reading it, who knows the story of what happens with Isaac and Jacob and Esau? Does anyone else? Go on. You guys, everyone, help her. Go on. Well, she gets lost. If you want to chime in.
Because when he was dying and the two sons came to him, he couldn't see them. So Jacob puts on something to make him feel hairy like his brother. And their father thinks that he is Esau. And
so he blesses Jacob to be the main heir of all. Does it sound familiar, everyone?
Mm-hmm.
So Isaac makes a mistake because of his blindness, right? We're all in sync with
I
that?
think his mom gave him that idea too.
Mom gave him the idea, right? Mom gives him the idea, and so she says, put some hair on your arms. And Isaac just gets hoodwinked. That's kind of what happened.
Isaac can't be that.
Isaac loses his physical sight, but he has beyond that, he has great spiritual sight. Okay? So let's look at what it really says. Because that's the story that everyone learned, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what the text says. No one here disagreed with what Fiona said, right? We all agreed?
Right.
Let's read the text. Who wants to read? Where we go, we're going to go right to after he's been dressed up by his wife, or by Rebecca, his mother. Okay? And who would like to read chapter 27? We'll start with verse number 16. Who would like to read? Someone else. Come on, someone else. You ready? Okay, go.
With the skins of the goat kids, she covered his arms and his smooth skin neck. She placed the delicacies and the bread that she had made into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came to his father and said, Father. And he said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, It is I, Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Rise up, please. Sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. Isaac said to his son, How is it that you were so quick to find my son?
In other words, you remember that he sent Esau hunting, and boom, bada bing, bada boom, he's already got the food prepared. Okay, there weren't like Ralph's supermarkets at the time. Right? Says, how did it get so fast? That doesn't sound right.
And he said, Because Hashem, your God, arranged it for me. And Isaac said to Jacob, Come close, if you please, so I can feel you, my son. Are you indeed my son Esau or not?
So, Alan, what do you think? Is he knows, doesn't he? Or questionable. Is it questionable right now? Maybe he knows, right? Okay, it's not so clear that he got hoodwinked. Keep going though. Let's see if it gets clear.
So Jacob drew close to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are Esau's hands. But he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like the hands of Esau, his brother. So he blessed him. He said, You are indeed my son Esau. And he said, I am. He said, Serve me and let me eat of my son's game, that my soul may bless you. So he served him and he ate, and he brought him wine and he drank.
And he gets Isaac's blessing. But is this all? We've already seen this happen, where everyone's acting out their job in a play with Isaac, haven't we? The rest of the stories recapitulate over and over. Isaac knew he was about to be sacrificed, right? Remember we talked about that? He says, Where's the sacrifice, Daddy? And he let him go up because Isaac has total faith in God. So he let it. He doesn't mind being an actor in a play. He already did it once. So you think he knows that Jacob is not, that's Jacob, not Esau? Of course he does. Of course he does. And so he says, okay, I'm going to bless you. But there's another lesson in here. What is the strength that Esau has that Jacob does not? Look, there's physical strength. Let's look at how energy works and how someone works. So there's an obstacle. There's a wall. Okay? There's a wall right here. Got to get to the other side. What does Jacob do?
Meditates.
Well, he's got to get to the other side. So how's he going to get? He goes, he'll figure out the easiest way for him to get around it, won't he? What's Esau going to do? Go through it. To be a great leader, what is this God telling us that we really need? Is it okay to only go around things? To manipulate, to sidestep things to get where you need to go? That's not okay. It's the only way, is it? Is it okay to always go through things? No. We want leaders who can do both. Right? Jacob's gentle. Esau is not. Esau is strong, forceful. Jacob is not. We want a leader who's both, don't we? So Jacob ultimately will be the greatest leader of our people in that way. We're not called, or we're constantly referred to as B'nai Yaakov or B'nai Israel, the children of Jacob or the children of Israel. You guys have all heard that being called, right? Has everyone heard at one point or another Jews are called the children of Israel, the children of Jacob, right?
Right.
Anyone ever heard us called the children of Isaac? Jews ever referred to that way?
Nope.
Because Jacob combines the best of Abraham and the best of Isaac into one. Okay? He combines the strength and the compassion into one of harmony. He's going to ultimately. It's going to take him a while to get to that level, but he's going to. So he gets the blessing. Now what happens? How many of you guys know the story? What happens after Jacob gets the blessing? What goes on with his brother?
He shows up.
And what's he feel?
He's angry.
He.
Betrayed.
So what's he going to do to poor Jacob?
He's going after him.
As soon as my time of mourning our father is done, I'm going to kick your butt. Right? So Jacob needs to flee. He chooses to flee. And so he does. He flees to his cousin Laban's place. And he goes to Laban. And on his way there, he goes to a place called Mount Moriah. Where have we heard about Mount Moriah before? Does anyone remember? Go on, Al.
Where the sacrifice was.
It's where the Akedah was. Okay? So he gets to Mount Moriah now. And let's go to chapter number 28, verse 10. Who wants to read? Someone who's not read yet. Did you read? You read already? Oh, go, then read. Go.
Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night, for the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. He had a dream. A stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached to the sky, and angels of God were going up and down on it.
Okay, so let's just pause there for a moment. Goes to sleep, and he has a dream. Okay? On Mount Moriah. And the angels are ascending, and the angels are descending on this ladder. Excuse me. What's that tell us about angels?
They're of both worlds.
They come to earth and they go back.
Read it again. Read the words again. Read them out loud.
Its top reached the heaven, and behold, angels of God were ascending and descending.
Okay, you just told me that they were coming down and going up. What's it say they were doing?
They were ascending and descending.
So they're going up and then down. So where are angels born?
Here.
Here. The word for angel, malach, means messenger. And they are born here. That's a very different theology than they come down, right? That's right. You said what everyone says. They come down and they go up. But the text says the exact opposite, doesn't it? They go up and come down because we birth them based on our actions, our thoughts, our deeds. When you do a good deed, when you do a mitzvah, when you do a whatever, you are birthing an angel. When we sing and dance together, we're birthing angels. Okay? That's why, when I do a Sephardic wedding, I come down the wedding and I am beyond joyous. And I'm jumping up and down because I want to birth as many angels as I can for this couple. I take my angel birthing very seriously. Okay, please continue.
And the Lord was standing beside him, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The ground on which you are lying, I will assign to you and to your offspring. Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants. Remember, I am with you. I will protect you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you.
Okay, so this is one of the places he identifies himself, as Yud He Vav He, as Hashem, and he promises the land to the descendants of Jacob. Okay, so obviously Isaac made the right decision, didn't he? And he has this dream. Okay, and he did not know the place, but it's a holy, holy place, and so he takes the stones and he names the place Beth-El, the house of God. Right? And he goes off, and then what happens? So I want to get through Jacob. I'd like to get through Jacob tonight if I can. He goes and he takes off to Laban, and what's the first thing that happens? Chapter 29, verse 1. Who wants to read? Now remember, there's all these. Everything happens at a well. I'm sorry, we haven't focused on it. Isaac meets Rebecca is met by Abraham's servant at a well. Abraham does things at a well, just like today. Only it's not an alcohol well; it's just a water well. Okay, water is that's where couples meet, right? Is at the well. So, someone please read chapter 29, verse 1.
So Jacob lifted his feet and went toward the land of the Easterns. He looked, and behold, a well in the field. And behold, 3 flocks of sheep lay there beside it. For from that well they would water the flocks, and the stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks would be assembled there, they would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep. Then they would put back the stone over the mouth of the well in its place.
So he's there at this. He's looking for his cousins. Please move to verse number 9. He's speaking to the shepherds.
While he was still speaking with them, Rachel had arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. And it was when Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the flock of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came forward and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well and watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel, and he raised his voice and wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son. Then she ran and told her father.
Okay. I'm not even going to get to the issue that the cousins who were getting together. That's just what went on for most of humanity, because you knew where your cousin was from. He falls in love with Rachel, and so he wants to marry Rachel, and he's committed to her. He falls in love with her the moment that he meets. And Laban, what does he say that he's going to do? Does anyone remember? And remember, he's going to work. And the verse is. I'm looking for where the verse of it is. Oh, there we go. Verse 18. Thank you. I will work for you for 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. So he works for Laban. He's very, very good at animal husbandry and at making hybrids and at genetics. Jacob learns how to do husbandry, and he learns how, if you pair this plant with this plant, you'll get a stronger plant. How to make animals with stripes, dominant gene type of stuff. And so he's going to get married. Isn't that exciting? And so no one's excited by Jacob's marriage. Wow.
Yay.
We are tired. Okay. So he goes and they go, and what happens on verse? He says, Jacob says, deliver my wife, my term is fulfilled. I will consort with her. Consort is a fancy term for bada bing, bada boom. Someone read chapter 29, verse 22, please.
So Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. And it was in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he consorted with her.
Keep going.
And Laban gave her Zilpah his maidservant, a maidservant to Leah his daughter. And it was in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me? And Laban said, such is not done in our place, to give the younger before the elder. Complete the week.
The week of being a honeymoon. The week of
this one, and we'll give you the other one too, for the work which you will perform for me in yet another 7 years.
Okay, so he hustles Jacob. You guys have all heard? How many of you heard this story before?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And Jacob goes to bed, thinks he's having sex with Rachel, and actually is having sex with Leah. And wakes up and says, oh my God, what have I done? Now I need to marry her. And how many heard this? Because he was at a feast and he was drunk. And did anyone ever think about that? And again, we're trying to learn to think like rabbis, to think Jewishly. Let's think about this for a second. So here's this man. He's worked for a woman for 7 years.
I thought about this.
Go on. So what have you thought about? Go on.
Well, you'd think he'd know if that was the woman he'd been in love with for 7 years, even if it was dark.
So this is the logic. Then he got drunk, right? How you'd have to get pretty drunk not to tell the difference, right? And still work. The plumbing doesn't work when you're that drunk, right? I mean, let's just be honest. It doesn't, unless someone knows something I don't know. I'm pretty sure that if you're so drunk that you can't tell between one human being that you're in love with for 7 years and another human being, if your eyes aren't working that badly, then I don't think anything's working right. Right?
Could this be a situation where, again, he's willing to be a player?
That's Isaac.
Right.
This is Jacob.
Yeah, I know this is Jacob, but Could this also
Could it?
be-
Yeah, I guess it could be, but he seems pretty shocked and pretty upset, and he just got hustled for another 7 years.
maybe-
All right.
Maybe his animal part just couldn't.
That would be fine, except he's drunk. He's so drunk he can't tell the difference. Because remember, if he can stop before he consummates his wedding, he can just say, "Where's Rachel?"
We don't know, maybe they look similar to each other.
Ah, you're getting on the right track.
What was that?
So there's a midrash.
Similar.
Right.
There's a beautiful midrash, but not only do they look similar, but there's a beautiful midrash. I think it's beautiful. A lot of people don't. I actually think it's very beautiful. That the two sisters love each other so much and don't want Leah to become an old maid. That Rachel stays in the room under the bed and makes sounds as if it's her being made love to, so Jacob doesn't realize he's with Leah. as
That's
opposed to
weird.
Jacob. It's a little weird, but it actually explains it, doesn't it?
It could.
And it's strange. I mean, there's no question. It's a little weird, but it doesn't make sense. I mean, why are we? You're so drunk that you're going to be with Leah when you waited for 7 years for Rachel. You know. So what do we do with the bride when she shows up at a wedding?
Oh, you unveil her. Yeah.
Make sure it's the right one.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And do you know what a bride and groom are supposed to do on the day of their wedding? Before the wedding. We all know what they're supposed to do after the wedding. But before the wedding, do we know what they're supposed to do? Fast.
Oh, right.
Fast.
Yes.
Now, there's a couple of reasons for it. One is it makes, and the first food they have is after they get married, where they have what's called yehud, and the couple goes into a private chamber where they feed each other their favorite foods, and they make love and their favorite drink. And there's a shomer, a guardian outside the room, so no one interrupts them. And the idea is that because you've been fasting, the taste is so much more intense. And so traditionally, a bride and groom fast, no food, and the first foods they have are as a married couple. But the other piece of it, if we're really honest about it, is if you're fasting, what aren't you doing? You're not drinking your schnapps. No man who's fasting is going to get snookered the way Jacob did, are they? So he works for 7 years, and then he gets another 7 years, and he gets, and he gets Rachel.
Before the ceremony where they do get drunk.
Yeah, that's a interesting where that custom comes from.
Oh, okay. But I've been to some of those.
Well, if you've been to a
Explain
tish, you've
that.
never been to a tish.
Well, I've never been to, I've been at the Bodega and they've been at the Tish and.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
traditionally he doesn't drink.
Everybody else does. but-
Everyone else can drink. It's,
Maybe, but I wouldn't know that.
But often what happens is he does get drunk, but he's not supposed to. We know he's not supposed to from this. Okay, so 7 years and 7 years equals how many years does he work? Now, this is where we're getting into this concept called gematria. We're going to start getting into, and we're going to see it more and more. We got into it a little bit when we talked about the numerical value of God's name, right? 26. This is called gematria. Seven plus 7 equals 14. The number of the 10th letter of the alphabet is, count with me, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Pet, Tet, Yud. And the 4th letter is Dalet, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Spelling the word Yod, the hand of God. Okay? So he gets now, doing it for 14 years, he really becomes a hand of God, a working person of God. He learns a tremendous amount about animal husbandry. And so when he makes a deal with Laban about which animals he can keep and which animals Laban can keep, Laban thinks he's got it wired, but actually Jacob knows how to manipulate it so he gets the right ones. Okay? So he takes off, and he takes off with his handmaids and and Jacob and Rachel and Leah. They all go off, and ultimately Laban confronts him, but backs off because he realizes that how holy Jacob is. But then we get to this great scene, Parsha Vayishlach, chapter 32, verse 4. Okay, actually, so let's start at 32:1. Someone want to read who hasn't read yet? Someone who wants to, is not ready yet. Someone, come on.
Okay. And Laban awoke early in the morning. He kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban went and returned to his place. Jacob went on his way, and angels of God encountered him. Jacob said, when he saw them, this is a godly camp. So he called the name of that place Mahanaim.
A night. Let's kick it on.
Okay. Then Jacob sent angels ahead of him to Esau, his brother, to the land of Seir and the field of Edom. He changed them, saying,
He charged them.
Oh, charged them. Thus shall you say to my lord Esau, so said your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and have ignored until now, or lingered until now.
So these angels, which literally means messenger, they might be physical, they might be spiritual ones. He sends to go talk to Esau's angels. Okay? Isn't that an interesting concept? I want to influence your consciousness. I want to influence your consciousness. So I'm going to talk to my angels, go talk to your angels. And whether you're conscious or not, you're going to then be affected by your angels. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
This is not only in our tradition, by the way. In different native traditions, if I want to communicate a message across a large distance, I will go to an oak tree and give my message to the oak tree and tell it, I want you to pass this message to an oak tree by Fiona. And when you're walking by an oak tree, you'll hear the message from an oak tree. This is how Lakota, how Ogallala, how different tribes said they communicated. So the angels go forth, and now they tell him, Esau's got a lot of people coming. So he prepares, and he splits off the camp. Okay? And this is one of the major points in his life. He splits off his camp. Let's go to chapter 32, verse 23. Someone read.
But he got up that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 handmaids, and his 11 sons and crossed the ford of Jabbok. And when he took them and had them cross over the stream, he sent over his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he perceived that he could not overcome him, he struck the socket of his hip. So Jacob's hip socket was dislocated as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for dawn is broken. And he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. He said to him, what is your name? He replied, Jacob. He said, no longer will it be said that your name is Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with the divine and with man and have overcome. And Jacob inquired, and he said, divulge, if you please, your name. And he said, why then do you inquire of my name? And he blessed him there.
Okay, so what happens? Jacob wrestles with a being. Now, there are a lot of interpretations on this, right? Let's 2 Jews equals 3 opinions, 4 rabbis, and 5 temples, or 4 temples and 5 rabbis, depending on the city, right? What happens? Well, one interpretation is that he wrestled with a real man all night. And another interpretation is he wrestled with God because it says divine. Another is that he wrestled with an angel. Another is that he wrestled with his own psyche in a dream. Okay? All of these are correct. Typically, if a rabbi asks you a question, either or, the answer is yes. Okay? Because they're all Elu. Remember, we're talking Elu v'Elu. These words and these words are both words of the living God. And it's the dialogue. So they're all correct in one way or another. But he changes his name after wrestling, whether it's with his own psyche or whether it's with an angel. And his name is no longer Yaakov. It's Yisrael. Now he gets, at this point he has 11 sons, so ultimately have a 12th one. But he has these sons, as well as his daughter, Dinah. And how many of you have seen Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat?
Mhm.
That's how I remember the names. That's not the right order. Reuben was the eldest of the children of Israel, with Simeon and Levi next in line. Naphtali and Issachar. Okay, never mind. We did it at camp. I remember it from 45 years ago. So he has all these sons and a daughter. Benjamin he hasn't had yet. But those will ultimately become the tribes in different formation. And his name is changed. And his name is no longer Yaakov. His name is now Yisrael. Let's look at this for a minute. Because it says a lot about who we are, what we are, and where we are. His name becomes Israel. Any name that has El in it has to do with God. Okay, the meaning of it. Michael literally means me, who, ka, is like God. Or it might mean he was praising God. Gavriel, Gever means strength. God is my strength, the strength of God. Uriel, or means light, so God is my light of God. Okay, with me? Raphael, Refuah is healing, so the name Raphael has to do with the healing power of God. So you have an L in your, who has an L in your name? Your English or Hebrew name?
Alan.
At the end.
Yeah, at the end,
That's
okay.
actually God, please God, because it's L not. But okay. But again, it's what comes from it. Now, he's going to have this name Yisrael, which literally means Yasser, to wrestle with God. That's what he does. And if we look at, now remember, there's one rule. You can chortle, you can chuckle. You cannot laugh outright at my artwork. Okay? Little guffaw is fine, but no outlet. We're clear on this, right? Okay.
I'm clear.
There's Jacob smoking a cigar. Okay? And Jacob gets hurt over here, right? He gets injured. His hip is knocked out. Right? With me so far? And with this? Remember we said we are made in the image of God. If we take the Yud He Vav He and we make it vertical, Jacob becomes that, doesn't he? Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
My Hebrew's better than my drawings.
Yes.
You didn't have to agree so
Very
quickly.
much.
You've got that look on your puddle,
Oh, I'm just turning it in my brain.
right? So he's got his hip, right? And so it's an entry place to do that. Now, before that, he's just Jacob. So he would look like, his imagery would look like this. Right? So you want to see that? But instead, it's going to look like this. Now you're going to see something that you probably didn't know. What part of a cow or any animal is not kosher to eat?
Hind section.
The sciatica, the hind section. Shh. Right? The sciatica, the hind section, the butt. All of which comes from right your hip. And we do it, on the one hand, if you ask why, you were told, well, because we're doing it in recognition and commemoration of Jacob, who changed from Jacob to Israel in that list. Well, that's true, but there's a deeper level. When you eat non-kosher meat, this is what you're supposed to look like. What we're supposed to look like? When you eat the non-kosher meat, you close the pathway to God. Does that make sense to everyone intellectually? I'm not saying everyone has to become kosher today. But does everyone see that intellectually? Why? And we want to have it opened up so we can get it. So we can walk through the world with that. Okay.
In all my 63 years, I never heard it explained to me that way.
Do you like that explanation?
Yes.
Then I'll take that
Very
as
much
a
so.
good job. Okay, we're done. Good night.
I mean,
I can put a W column now when
from
someone got.
religious school to Hebrew school to our Orthodox friends to our own, I've never heard
And that makes
explained
sense now, doesn't it?
Totally makes sense.
Okay. So now you can now supposedly get kosher. Now, first of all, where does filet mignon come from? This part.
Right.
So what is there? Has there never been kosher filet mignon?
You have to remove the sciatic nerve.
There is apparently there. You can now buy. It's very expensive. Apparently, kosher filet mignon that removes the sciatic nerve. However, Does it fix this issue or is it blocking it? It's still blocking it, isn't it?
Who cares? About eating filet mignon. and trying to be kosher.
Look, I'd rather have steak tartare if I'm gonna break meat on it a little, all right? Okay, so that's much more.
It's not
So
my favorite. Not that I eat meat anymore, but it was never my favorite cut of meat anyway.
so there you have it. So right, as opposed to a good ribeye.
Yeah, exactly.
So or just a good hamburger, right? You know, I'm good. So this also opens up us so we can walk through the world being more conscious of God being part of us, entering into us. Different way of looking at it.
Totally.
Does it make it more interesting to say, okay, you know, I'm going to think we're going to eat kosher? We'll get there by the end of it. We'll get there. So he has this dream, and his name becomes Israel. And sometimes, from then on, we're called the children of Jacob, and sometimes we're called the children of Israel. Why? What is God telling us? Well, your mom wanted to call you because you've done something, because she was really happy with you. What did she say? How'd she call you when you were a kid? What'd she call you?
Alan, my whole name.
Okay. Alan, come. Alan, I got some ice cream for you. When you did something wrong and she was going to call you, what would she say?
Middle name too.
Right?
Yeah. I never thought of it.
Right? Yeah, okay. If I say to my son, Benjamin George Barclay, our names are power, and they're powerful. Jesus recognizes the power of the name. We believe that when someone is named after somebody else, they have a piece of their soul, a portion of their soul. Names are very, very powerful. One of the ways that we do healing often is you change someone's Hebrew name. Okay. When we're B'nai Jacob, B'nai Yaakov, when the sons of Jacob, children of Jacob, that's a teaching that we need to deal with whatever issue is going on in the Torah at that time, the way Jacob would. We need to think about it. We need to plan it. We need to manipulate around it, like Jacob. When it says B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, do we do that? Or we need to go through it? Does that make sense to everyone? That's why sometimes we're called B'nai Yisrael and sometimes we're called B'nai Yaakov. Because it's a teaching in each time. When we're called B'nai Yaakov, we're supposed to think through it. We're called B'nai Yisrael, we're supposed to go through it. So now let's talk about Israel. What a weird name. Wrestles with God. That almost makes it sound like we're fighting with God, doesn't it? Yes? Except, well, that's one. So what, if we watched wrestling, out of all the sports that you can think of, there is no more intimate sport, is there? Who's ever watched wrestling in the Olympics? The Greco-Roman wrestling and that stuff. Okay, watch that. And they've got those tights on, and I don't know what the right term is, but it's like a G-string that goes up your whole body, and they're wrestling, right? And they're poised over each other as they're doing it. If you didn't know what they were doing, you saw two men doing that through a window, would you think that they were doing an athletic sport, or would you think they were doing something else? It's context, right? Either way, wrestling is intimate. We are wrestlers with God. We are to have an intimate relationship with God. It is so sad when we don't have intimate relationships, isn't it? I'm not talking about intimacy like marital intimacy. Just, it's so sad when we don't have intimacy in our relationships, vulnerability. Right? Two men wrestling, they know everything about each other, don't they, in that moment? They can tell, well, okay, you wore your deodorant today, you didn't wear your deodorant, and I can tell you what brand. Right? You didn't shower very well. I can smell your conditioner, you didn't rinse it off your hair. I mean, it's very intimate, isn't it? Are we that intimate with God? We should be, we could be, but are we? Do we walk through the world that way? And that's what Israel is saying, is that we are to be that intimate with God. You know, it doesn't matter what culture you go to. mystical poetry you read, whether it's Salome ben Gadol from our tradition or Song of Songs from our tradition, whether it's Rumi from the Sufis, or Gibran, or any of these kind of great, or St. Francis, any of these great mystic poets, there's a consonant that's true with all of them, which is it's written in the language of love. Rumi says, "Oh, my beloved, take me away from everything that takes me away from you." Right? The idea being that we have the opportunity in every moment to be intimate with God, and we're not, are we? If we're honest. And we have that opportunity and to feel God's love in every moment. And that's intense. It's really intense and really beautiful. And so his name becomes Israel. And as a people, it's a teaching for us. We are not the God's out there, and I'm going to go worship that thing that's out there. For us, God is not just transcendent, God is immanent, meaning God is close. And so we have this concept called Yehud, Y-I-C-H-U-D. Yehud, which means unification. And that we are to get to a place of an awareness of our unification with God. Or as the Baal Shem Tov taught, devakut, which means to cleave with God. And we learn that through Jacob, who changes his name to Israel. Now, what does it mean to cleave with God? Most of the time, most people, here's God, here's man. Right? They might be synced, they might not be. That's being close. That's being cleaving and being unified. And that's what we do. That's what we learn from this. By the way, the ritual that is done of a bride and groom feeding each other and making love after their wedding is also called Yehud, because they are to cleave and to become unified together. So Jacob has this amazing experience, and Esau comes up afterwards, and Esau is okay with it all because his angels have told him, be okay with Jacob, because they were told that by Jacob's angels. And so everything's hunky-dory, everyone's happy. And then you have the story that comes of Jacob's sons. So Jacob has all these sons. Reuben's the eldest one from Leah. And out of these sons, 2 are from the handmaids, 2 are from Rachel, who's his favorite, right? Rachel. 1 is Joseph, which means additional. 1 is Benjamin, which means the son of my right hand. Okay? And they come out of Rachel. And they're very beloved. And Joseph, how many of you saw Joseph at the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat? You can watch it online. There's a YouTube version with Donny Osmond. And why are you laughing? He's been a headliner in Vegas now for years. Donny Osmond is the 21st century version of Wayne Newton. So, no. Apparently, I've not seen it. Apparently, it's a fabulous show. Apparently, he's had this residency for the last 10 years or 15 years.
Still going on?
Yeah, no, it's still going on at one of the Caesars properties. And also kind of funny because the ad for it is he looks like a 70-year-old monster. It's kind of funny. But Donny Osmond and Joan Collins plays Potiphar's wife, and Sir Richard Attenborough plays Jacob, and it's all on YouTube of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And it's the first big show by these little composers named Rice and Weber. And it's the most performed show on the planet. It's the most performed single show on the planet, because across the world, elementary school kids can do this, can do the whole show. There's basically only 3 chords in the whole show. It's pretty simplistic music. But so you've got Jacob, and he's got his brothers, and Jacob, Rachel's dead, and so Jacob's favorite son is Joseph. And he gives Joseph a coat of many colors because he loves him so much. And he treats Joseph as his favorite. Now Joseph, for his part, has the JFK Jr. syndrome. Okay? Joseph's got it all. He's talented, he's brilliant, he's good looking, and he's daddy's favorite. And he has this gift. And before getting into what we'll talk about, he has this gift of dreams. And any dreams. And when he has dreams, he has this real great gift that he is able to interpret what the dreams mean. And so he has these dreams, and he's also not exactly the most shrewd tack in the box. Okay? So he's daddy's favorite, and he lords it over his brothers. Okay? Look, daddy gave me a coat. Look how good I am. Okay? So they're really, they don't really feel so great with him. And one day, Joseph had a dream, and being the naive kind of guy that is, he shares his dream with his brothers. Could someone please go to chapter 37, verse 5? Actually, verse 4. Come on, someone else. 37, verse 4.
His brothers saw that it was he whom their father loved most of all.
Yeah, that's like the tiny little version in a 2-point
Oh my
font.
gosh, it is so.
So his brothers saw that it was he whom their father loved most of all his brothers. So they hated him, and they could not speak to him peaceably.
Anyhow, what happens?
Joseph dreamt a dream which he told to his brothers,
Because they hate him. So why not share a dream? Go on.
and they hated him even more.
Why would they hate him even more from this dream? Go on.
He said to them, "Hear, if you please, this dream which I dreamt. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, when, behold, my sheaf arose and also remained standing. Then, behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Would you then reign over us? Would you then dominate us?" And they hated him even more because of his dreams and because of his talk.
I dreamed a dream that in the fields one day, the corn gave me a sign. Your 11 sheaves of corn all turned and bowed to mine. Okay? I still remember from 45 years. It's okay. So what happens? They say, this means that you seem to be prophesying that we're all going to bow down to you. Boy, are you a schmendrick. Please continue.
He dreamt another dream and related it to his brothers. And he said, "Look, I dreamt another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." And related it to his father and to his brothers. His father scolded him and said to him, "What is this dream thing that you have dreamt? Are we to come, I and your mother and your brothers, to bow down to you to the ground?" So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
Because his father knows that he interprets dreams. So let's talk about this for a little bit. What does this tell us about dreams in Judaism? Going what?
They're important. They mean something.
Is this so there are a number of different types of dreams in Judaism. I give a class on every year on dreams and dream interpretation. There are pages and pages in Talmud about dream and dream interpretation in Judaism. One of the forms of dreams are prophetic dreams. Okay, excuse me for 1 second. Hey, I'm teaching a class. Can I call you right back? Okay, I'll text you when I'm done if you still have your call. Okay, thanks, man. So one type of dream is a prophetic dream. What is time? Is time real? It is. Okay. Based on what?
Space.
What?
Distance over space or something.
It's distance and space, right? Time is a measure of distance. Right? Exactly. Exactly. Is it real?
Well, you don't think so.
I think it's a nice way for us all to function together. But let's have the talk a little bit. So is time real? Ever been in love? Okay. Ever been in love? Right? Every man who's here with his wife better be saying absolutely. Kellen, you can hit him if you want. Feel free. Right? So deeply in love, and a kiss lasts forever. Right? It's typically when we're younger than anyone in this room is right now. Do you remember those days? Right? How many remember those times? Right? In reality, it lasted about a tenth of a second. Right? In reality, it lasted about a tenth of a second. Ever put your hand on a hot plate? That fast, you're done. The burn stays with you, doesn't it? Time is a construct that we've decided to interact with. So, time is not, the universe is not linear. The universe is not in a time which goes A follows B and follows C. And if you want proof of that, how many of you miss a loved one like a parent or a grandparent to this day for many years? Okay, who do you miss?
My mom,
How long ago did she die?
26 years.
Still miss her, don't you? And it still seems like yesterday at a certain level,
Yes.
right? How many of us can relate to that? There are people that you spent time with in the last 48 hours that mean nothing to you, right? I mean, they're just people you walk by, or they're not people you have a relationship with. Your mother is more present in your consciousness than they are. True or false?
Mm-hmm.
So the time of the 26 years didn't change anything. It's a construct. And in the same way, you can have prophetic dreams. Dreams in which you're accessing what happens in the future. Because the future and the present, if we accept that time is non-linear, then the future and the present are both at the same time, aren't they? Do you remember what God's name is when I told you what it meant? Do you remember the conjugations of it? Let's go over it again. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The root of the word, just grammatically, are these two letters, which means to be present. It's in the present. Yud makes something masculine. Hey makes something feminine at the end. Yud makes it masculine at the beginning, but it makes it what kind of tense? Future. So it's future tense masculine. Hey at the end makes it past tense feminine, which means to really experience God is to recognize that past, present, future, male and female, are all happening all at one time. Every one of you has had that experience at one point or another. It's called being in the zone, right? It's called being present. Remember we talked about Hineni? I don't need to yell again, do I?
No.
It scares you less.
No, you're scared.
Right? So if time is not linear, if in fact it's about being present, every one of you, every one of us have all had an experience where everything's unified, isn't it? It happens in our brain chemistry. When you have an orgasm, you've taken certain substances. When you are in ecstasy through dance, song, meditation, whatever it may be. When you're in the zone, you fall into it because of athletics. Who's ever fallen into the zone through athletics? I know you have with dance, right? What sport?
Just actually hiking for hours.
Absolutely. And all of a sudden you're there, right? And then when you realize you're in the zone, what happens? You fall out of it. Because it's outside of our brain chemistry. So when you're in that zone, dreams and time are very different. And so dreams are one way, because a lot of our mind, our conscious mind is shut down, that we can access that awareness level. Does that make sense to everyone? Or is that too kind of out there? So we learned here about dreams. We've already learned about dreams being symbolic, right? And being with Jacob and the angels going up and down, right? He dreamed a dream, Angels were ascending and descending, and they talked to him. So that's a spiritual level. Now we're learning that dreams can be prophetic. So we have this process. So Jacob has these dreams, or Joseph has these dreams. Then what happens to Joseph? Does anyone remember? He gets thrown into a pit, right? And Reuben says, don't kill him. That's a bad idea. And because the brothers want to, they're very cranky. And so what do they do instead? They kill a goat. What's it remind you of? Come on.
The sacrifice.
Like the goat stepping in again. Poor little goats. And so they kill a goat, and they take his coat, and they douse it with the goat blood. And they come back to Jacob, and Jacob says, where's my favorite son? Joseph, they say, oh, we were attacked by this wild animal. Joseph saved us by himself. And look, here's his coat that's been bloodied with the animal, but we're all alive because of our good brother Joseph. I didn't say they were nice about it. They're going to have their own service as a result. And so that's how Jacob gets done with it. But when they have him in the pit, they're not sure what to do with him. He's in a pit. Some Ishmaelites come by, right? And these Ishmaelites come by, and they sell Joseph to be a slave. And so they take Joseph to Egypt. And that's how we go to Egypt. That's how we actually get in. Okay? Joseph goes to Egypt. There, he becomes he's sold as a slave to a banker named Potiphar. Potiphar is a big banker, big wealthy guy. And Potiphar's wife is Joan Collins. And Potiphar's wife tries to seduce Joseph, and Joseph says no. She keeps trying. He says no. Because he's so talented and good looking and everything else, he rises to the top of Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. He keeps saying no. And then we have this scene where he runs away and says, no. She's almost caught trying to seduce him. And she says, he tried to rape me. That's what she says to Potiphar. Potiphar puts Joseph in prison. Now let's look again at some dreams. Because Joseph is the great dreamer. If we can go to, is everyone clear with the story so far? How many of you know the story pretty much from one way or another? Kind of sort of. Okay. So now we get to, let's go right up to Potiphar's wife keeps his garment, says he raped me, he tried to rape me, etc., etc. And let's see what happens. Someone read chapter 40, verse 1. Somebody.
Okay. And it happened after these things that the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and the baker transgressed against their master, against the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was enraged at his two courtiers, the chamberlain of the cupbearers and the chamberlain of the bakers. And he placed them in the ward of the house of the chamberlain of the butchers unto the prison and the place where Joseph is confined. The chamberlain of the butchers appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them, and they remained in the ward for a period of days.
Please go on.
The two of them dreamt a dream.
The butcher, or the cupbearer and the baker.
Each one had his dream on the same night, each one according to the interpretation of his dream. The cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison. Joseph came to them.
Okay, so let's pause for a second. So what happens? They say we had some dreams. Joseph says, well, I'm pretty good at interpreting dreams. Tell me what happened, and tell me what they were, and I'll tell you what they meant. And if we looked at this, we would see that the cupbearer says in his dream, there was grapevine in front of him, and there were 3 tendrils on the grapevine, and Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I placed the cup in Pharaoh's palm. And Joseph says, that's a good dream. In 3 days, you're going to be serving wine to Pharaoh again. And the baker says, oh, I had a dream too. And in my dream, I had 3 wicker baskets of bread on my head, and they were all kinds of Pharaoh's food, and birds were eating them from the basket above my head. Joseph said, that's not such a good dream. In 3 days, you're going to be beheaded and die. Okay, and both happen in 3 days. Baker is killed, and the cupbearer is returned. And then we have a really important lesson. Someone said, if someone could read verse 20, please.
It
You know, it was on the third day, Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast.
Actually, wait, back up for a second. Please read verse 14 first. He's talking now to the cupbearer.
If only you would think of me with yourself when he benefits you, and you'll do me a kindness, if you please, and mention me to Pharaoh, then you would take me out of this building. For indeed, I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing for them to have put me in this pit.
And then if we go down, just exactly what Joseph said would happen, and please read verse 23.
And it was on the third day, Pharaoh's birthday.
No, go down. I'm sorry, not 23. Yeah, 23. Keep going down.
I'm sorry, 23.
Yeah,
Yet the chamberlain of the cupbearers did not remember Joseph, but he forgot him.
Okay. Joseph ultimately is going to have, Pharaoh's going to have a dream, and the cupbearer is going to say to Pharaoh, no one's going to be able to interpret the dream. He's going to have these dreams, recurring dreams. And the cupbearer is going to say, oh, there's this guy new in prison who's really good at interpreting dreams. We should bring him in. And Joseph is going to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, and he's going to be correct. He's going to become a great leader. But there's a really important teaching that happens 2 years after this incident. He gets it right with the cupbearer. And then it takes 2 years before he's out of prison. Why? Joseph should have, Joseph does have most of the time, a tremendous amount of faith and awareness and insight, right? He has all those things. And a lot of faith in God. Everything's working out in the way it's supposed to. But go back to the verse that you read twice. Twice he says to the cupbearer, tell Pharaoh about me. Tell Pharaoh about me. Get me out of here. It wasn't faith in God. It was faith in the man. And so because of that lack of faith, he spends 2 more years in prison. It seems kind of harsh, doesn't it? No more harsh than it will seem when we find that Moses, because of a single mistake, is not allowed into Israel. By the way, the mistake is not that he hit the rock. It's not the mistake. The mistake is that he says he says to the people, shall we make water come forth from this rock? It's not the hitting of the rock that's the problem. If you actually read which we will get to, which you may have learned, how many of you heard that it was the hitting of the rock that was the problem? Yeah, that's not why Moses is kept out. It's because he takes credit for it. He and Aaron take credit for it, and that's why they're not allowed in. So we'll get to that. But Joseph is judged on a different scale than other people. Is that okay? What do you think? You're all kind of shrugging and thinking. And
What do you mean he's judged?
He's judged differently. He is judged that he makes a little tiny mistake. He asks the cupbearer, please, twice he says, remind Pharaoh, get me out of here. Who should he be placing his faith in? Who does he place it in? The cupbearer. Twice. And he gets stuck having to pay the karma on that of 2 years in prison. How many think that's okay?
I do, because a leader is going to be judged differently
That's our
than a
teaching.
regular person.
That's and not just a leader, a parent, anybody. We judge and should judge others and be judged by others based upon who we are. I have 14-year-old twins. They don't always act like 14-year-olds. Should I judge them the way that they were judged when they were 7? Will that ever help them? How many of you have grown kids? So give your rabbi some advice here. Should I judge them the way that I judged them when they were 7?
No.
Or should I be a little bit more demanding on them because they're 14?
But you also have to remember they're 14 and they're trying to figure themselves out, and you know, you gotta.
But should I judge them the way they were when they were 5?
Of course not.
Well, that doesn't sound very fair. When they were 5, they got away with something that I won't let them get away with today.
Absolutely not.
Good, you can call my sons later. Right? And I'm not the only one, I'm assuming, who's had this challenge as a parent. Please tell me I'm not. Okay, thank you. Here I am. You're not helping me.
You just have 2 at the same age, so that's your.
And twins are typically a little bit emotionally less. They develop a little slower emotionally because it's just typically what happens with twins. Because why they don't need to, they each other. So, and they're boys, and they were so much easier before they had hair under their arms. But so, right, we judge them differently, right? Should I judge? Let's back it up. Should we judge our clergy differently than we judge everyone else?
Yes.
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 I'm just a guy. Why should I be judged differently?
You're supposed to know better.
Ooh,
You're
that
supposed
was
to
a
be
good one.
leading us.
Okay.
We just hold certain. We hold
We-
people
we-
to higher
In
standards.
whatever, we hold
Of course.
different people at different standards, and we should.
Yeah.
Okay. If
And
a
God was holding
and that's what God's doing. If there's a guy who owns a real estate development company and he's married and he has an affair, does anybody care? Probably not, other than his wife, right?
Right.
If, God forbid, a clergy has an affair,
Big deal.
big deal, isn't it? Should it be?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the reasons is because of children, because children don't relate to God so much as they relate to the clergy first. And so it ends up disenfranchising them from the entire faith tradition. Okay, there's a whole other side detriment that happens. Should we hold our judges to different standards? Should we hold our politicians and leaders to different standards?
Yes.
Of course, you put yourself in a place where you're in charge of other people. You should be judged more. harshly.
My answer is no one forces rabbis to become rabbis. And if you're going to act like that, then get the hell out of the rabbinate because you shouldn't be. Okay? It's just that simple to me. Doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. Because God knows I make more than most. I make more mistakes than most people. But that doesn't change the fact that, yes, we should hold people to different standards, right? Should the Pope be held to a different standard than a bishop or a priest? Yes. Right? Because he also affects other people in a different way. Should we hold Joseph, who knows so much about faith, to a different standard than maybe we would be held to?
God certainly did.
That's the point. God does. And it's a teaching that we should. We should. We should hold parents to a different state, a different standard than we hold children to.
Isn't there also a verse, to whom much is given? Or is that New Testament?
I don't know. I don't know Christian scripture, so.
But do you know that saying, to whom much is given, like much is expected? I forget how it goes. Does that sound familiar?
I just know Spider-Man's with
I know that.
right?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know where that comes from.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes,
Same kind of
basically
thing.
it comes,
Yeah.
yeah, same type of thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so we're going to learn here very clearly. This lesson is very deep, and we're going to see this throughout the rest of Judaism, throughout the Bible, and throughout the rest of Judaism. You judge people. We've already learned you judge people where they are. We learned that from Ishmael, remember? He doesn't kill Ishmael. We judge them for where they are. And that we judge people based on where they are, not only for the benefit, but also in terms of a standard. Okay? And we need to remember that. And is that always fair? Probably is. When you look at the world through the eyes of soul development, then it probably is. So Joseph is going to be in prison for 2 years. And he's going to come out of prison. And because the Pharaoh's going to have his dream. And if you watch Joseph, an Amazing Technicolor Dream, which I do recommend, because it actually is a really very good version of what happens. And it's actually pretty darn accurate version of what's actually in the text. What happens is Pharaoh comes out. Now, Joseph isn't technically a dream coat. Pharaoh's a Elvis impersonator. Okay? And he tells him, it's just, oh, welcome down the banks of the Nile when 7 fat cows came up out of the Nile. Oh, pop shawada wada, pop shawada. Right behind the sailors of the animals came. 7 of the cows that were skinny and vile. Anyhow, so, right? And he has these dreams. And in the dreams, there are 7 fat cows that are eaten by 7 thin cows. And in these dreams, there are 7 good, healthy ears of corn that are eaten by 7 bad ears of corn. He says, no, Joseph, he says, Joseph, what does that mean? And Joseph realizes exactly what it means. It means that there's going to be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Right? So Joseph has JFK syndrome. He's smart, he's shrewd, he's intelligent, good looking, charismatic. And so he says, Pharaoh, 7 good years, 7 bad years. What you need to do is you need to store everything. And then when the 7 bad years come, you're going to be able to have everything anyhow. So you need to ration it. And you're going to need someone who's really, really good and really smart and insightful to run your business for you. And I may have an idea who. And what does Pharaoh do? You don't look like you'd hire me right now. I'm not sure how I feel about this. He hires Joseph, right? He hires Joseph, and Joseph becomes the number 2 guy in all of Egypt. Now, there's going to be a famine in Canaan as well, and they're going to come ultimately to Egypt because they hear that there's food. But let's just recap for a minute, because I want you to think about something. I will pick it up there next week. Just want to mark where I'm going to be. So, you all have food. It's a good 7 years, right? And everyone's got food. Now next year comes. Now we're in the first year of the famine. I got food. Actually, that's not me. Alan and Carolyn have food. They're Pharaoh and Joseph. Don't ask me which is which. Okay. They're the rulers. They got all the food. First year comes. We're all hungry. What do? We go to them. Say, Alan and Carolyn, I'm going to buy your food from you because they got plenty. Are they going to probably sell it to me at a good rate? Or are they going to probably sell it to me at a discount rate? Or are they going to sell me at an expensive rate? Yeah? Okay. Now the second year comes. Third year comes. We're out of food still. Famine's still going on. We all need food. We need food for our babies. We need food for everything. We're going to go to Alan and Carolyn, right? They got all our money. What do you guys want for your food? We got to get your food.
How about some land?
Some land. There you go. We're going to give them our land, aren't we? Eventually, we're even going to be willing to be slaves for them, aren't we? In order to be able to feed our families and our children. Does that make sense to everyone? Mm-hmm. Now we're going to say that Carolyn's Pharaoh and Alan's Joseph. Okay? Are we talking to Carolyn when we're making these deals? We're talking to Alan, aren't we? So when we lose all of our money and all of our land and all of our possessions and eventually even our freedom, Pharaoh loves him, right? Because he's making a fortune for her.
And he's the bad guy. I can be the good guy. He's the bad guy.
So who do we hate? So eventually, down the road, our children, grandchildren, whatever, they're not going to be so much fans of Alan, are they? Right? And if we ever get in power, what are we going to do?
Retribution.
I'm going to take Alan off the table. I'm going to make him and his family slaves. Because there arises a new king who knew not of Joseph, doesn't have a relationship with Joseph. And so when people say, how did they go? How did these Hebrews go from being so successful to being slaves? Have you ever thought about that before? Right? We're there with Joseph. Everything's great. And then suddenly we're slaves. What the heck did we do wrong? Anyone ever think about that? What we did wrong is nothing other than Joseph was doing his job and he got blamed. We see that story recapitulated as well, don't we? In the Middle Ages and throughout Europe, the Jew can't hold land. The because the Jew is educated, has learned to think and learns mathematics, because that's what we do with our children. Can't own land, so he becomes a merchant, a money lender, a money changer. And so he works with the royalty as well. He works with the local baron, earl, whomever it may be. And they get the money from the serfs, and the royalty, the earl, the baron, whomever, doesn't trust the Jew, hates the Jew because he thinks he's getting ripped off because he can't check the numbers. And all the serfs hate the Jew because he's collecting the money. So everybody hates the Jew, don't they? This is part of the root of anti-Semitism. We're going to get to it later on. And we see it here. The anti-Semitism that's going to come out from the Egyptians, the anti-Hebrew, because, as you said, retribution. And a hate that can be visceral and violent. Who's really at fault, by the way? Is Alan or is Carolyn? Why do we have to sell everything to get food? Is that Alan's responsibility or is it ultimately Carolyn's? It's Carolyn's, right? She's the boss. Ultimately, it's Pharaoh who's responsible, but Joseph ends up doing. Do you guys all see that? Okay. Because of what's going on in the world. Look right now in 2023. There is no such thing as Palestine. It does not exist. There's no historical Palestine. Palestine does not exist. And in Gaza, in 1964, the Palestinian liberated. In 1964, in the early 60s, the United Arab Emirates hire a public relations company called Anderson. I forget the partners' names. We'll go over this on Friday. And they create a victim, and the victim is Palestinians. Who really are Palestinians? Jordanians and Egyptians, right? And so what happens? They create this victim. And in 1967, when we defend ourselves and take over Golan Heights, Sinai, the West Bank, and Gaza, they say everyone living in all those locations we're going to call Palestinian. Are they? They're not even from the same nation, are they? Totally made up. Everyone seeing this? Now, Golan's going to end up, they're going to let us alone pretty much there, because once we control the Golan, Egypt, we make a deal with land for peace, and thank God we still have peace. But anyone know what Israel looks like? So people know.
Yeah.
So see my drawing. Where's my drawing? Okay. Remember our rule.
No laughing.
Remember our rule. Right? So watch the brilliance of marketing. Why and what happens. Behold Israel. I didn't get a chuckle. Okay, behold Israel, right? And over here is the West Bank. Right? I'm sorry, over here's Gaza. Excuse me. And over here's the West Bank. And this is the sea, Mediterranean Sea. And this is the Jordan River. Right? And these people are where? Where are they in 1960? What country were their parents citizens of? Jordan. And these people, what's that? Egypt. But now, what they're going to say, thank you, Mr. Anderson, and thank you, company, is that this is one country called Palestine. Is it?
No.
Not even close, is it?
No.
And they're going to get very angry at these people over here, like Joseph. Who should they really be angry with? They should be angry with Egyptians. They should be angry with Jordanians. They should be angry with Syrians. Why aren't you taking us back into our country, etc.? But they're not. They're used as pawns by Pharaoh. Pharaoh Jordan, Pharaoh. Does everyone follow me with this now? Do you see the parallels to the story we just had? How many of you see that? Raise your hand so I get an idea. Okay, now, if you say that this and this are one country, then all of this is only defined as what? occupied territory in the midst of the country. Do you guys see this? So by instead of saying that the West Bank and Gaza are two different areas and that this is Egyptians and this is Jordanians, by saying that they are all Palestinians, you have now by definition said that all of this is Palestine from the river to the sea, which is the definition used by Palestine still. Still, you don't find Israel in books in the definition or on globes and maps in the Middle East. But by saying these two areas, which are totally unrelated, are one country, you now can justify saying this is just occupied territory. The analogy I might make is California, Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, and Washington, and all of the East Coast from Georgia up to the original 13 colonies are one country, okay? And they say that everything else in between, from Minnesota to Illinois, is occupied territory, because obviously it's our country because we have the borders. Do you guys see the parallel?
Yep.
That was one of the brilliance moves, marketing-wise, that the Palestinians, the Arabs did. By saying instead that this is displaced Egyptians and this place is displaced Jordanians, they have now for 60, 70 years said this is 55 years, whatever it is. They said this is one country.
Idea?
No, Arafat's not with us.
No, not Arafat.
It's a company called Anderson and something else. This is one. Do you guys now see the brilliance of it? And who's everyone going to be angry with? Joseph. Who are they going to blame? Are they blaming the people who actually threw them out? No, they're blaming Joseph. And that's what happened here in the text. That's what we see in the text. Does that make sense to everyone why I say that? So when we're studying this, it has everything to do with that. It's not far away. And it's just language, isn't it? Which is why we need to take control back of the language. If we want peace, we have to take control of the language. So he's talking to someone who's very politically conservative. She made a great comment. I know where she stands on a lot of political issues. She's sort of middle of the road. She's like Rick Warner, right between Attila the Hun and Genghis Khan. Very middle of the road. And she said, Rabbi, they identify after 60 years, they identify as Palestinians. I said, okay. So, because I knew her politics, I knew where she stood. I said, so, okay. So every drag queen who identifies as a woman, you're now going to start calling a woman and can be in women's athletics and use a women's restaurant? She goes, God, no, I never do that. I said, but that's how they identify. I can wave my hand over a pig all day and it may call itself a chicken. It ain't a chicken. Okay? So this is, but do you see how this is reflected? The teaching we learned here. We see what happens here. By the way, we'll get to it. All of this was predicted, by the way, 100 years ago by a man named Vladimir Jabotinsky, early Zionist. Jabotinsky predicts all of this. All the problems we have today, Jabotinsky predicts, almost prophetically. So if you know this, you start to see the world differently, don't you? One other thought just to toss in there, this week's Torah portion. It's the Torah portion of Noah. And in this Torah portion, it talks about the cruelty of the human being and the word that is used. Just because I always say, our sages teach you can look at the modern world through the eyes of Torah. The word that is used in the Hebrew, Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It was the Torah portion, by the way, we started reading on Saturday afternoon. Last Saturday afternoon. Just, I would say there's a lot here. So we'll take this up again next week. Friday night, we will have a service where we'll do some prayers, but we also will do some more of this stuff for people. How much of this, what I just talked about tonight about Palestine stuff, was new information for people? How many of you got some new information out of it? Okay. And there's a lot of stuff that we need to look at and kind of evaluate. We're going to talk about moral equivalency and principle of proportionality, and what we are what we need to do and how and why. Okay, you can pass your Bibles up back here. Yes.
Next week, we have class Monday, and then Wednesday, we have.
And the next Wednesday, we're going to have a class not on this per se, but on Judaism, war and conflict, peace and resolution. Judaism is a very, very specific rules about war. What is war? Why is war? Why do we go into conflict? How do we do conflict? What does it mean? And what are we supposed to be doing? We have very, very specific rules about war. Okay, very, very specific and very specific practices. And as I was talking with someone today, all of our rules go out the window with one exception. I mean, there's one exception that makes all the rules go out the window. We're going to talk about that too. I'm going to send another email. How many? So I've been sending out emails to people. How many, do you guys liking getting this many emails?
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
Because the time's more urgent.
Yeah.
Well, that's no. I wouldn't send them out. But do you guys like having me send out these many?
Yes.
And I've
I love
forwarded
the
them too.
information that you send out that we don't know about.
Are you looking like you guys don't get them?
We don't.
Oh, I know. He'll take care of that. So it's working because I'm sending them out. It feels like I'm sending 2 a day out almost, or even more.
Some days, not every day.
But so I'm going to send out one tonight about what not to do during war, and that includes don't buy products from certain countries who are supporting Palestine.
Rabbi, my husband gets them, but I would like to get them if he replies back to one.
Talk to him. I'm useless.
Well, do they come from the show, like a central email from you, or do they come directly from
He takes care of all of it. Thank God. Orlando takes. I'm just sort of a face. I'm sort of the face of things. I don't do anything. But here's the good news: because I don't do anything, no one knows when I've started or when I've finished. So I can get away with pretty much anything. So this